Have you ever heard of the Black Dahlia? Most people might recognize it as the name of a death metal band from Michigan, the Black Dahlia Murder. But in truth, the Black Dahlia is the name of one of the most brutal and unsolved murder cases in America. Even the FBI couldn't crack it. It was the case of a young woman named Elizabeth Short, found dead, naked, and mutilated. Elizabeth Short was born in Boston in 1924, the third of 5 children. Her father abandoned the family during a deep depression. In 1942, Elizabeth discovered that her father was living in California, and she went to meet him. She moved to Vallejo to live with him, but the reunion was far from happy. She soon left to work at Camp Cook, moved to Santa Barbara, and eventually drifted across the country. Elizabeth was a beautiful, outgoing young woman. She dated frequently, but never seriously. She wasn't known as a heavy drinker and held regular jobs as a movie theater usher, cashier, and waitress. She was once engaged to a U.S. Air Force pilot, but tragedy struck when he died in a plane crash in India in August 1945. After that, her life spiraled into chaos. In the final year and a half of her life, Elizabeth lived a parasitic lifestyle, constantly begging for food, rides, shelter, and money from men. She had a knack for finding sympathetic men by telling the sad story of her fiancé's death. In July 1946, Elizabeth returned to California, spending time in Los Angeles and San Diego. She was 22 years old, chasing dreams of a Hollywood career. She was nicknamed the Black Dahlia a few months before her gruesome death, partly for her fondness of wearing black. The nickname also referenced the crime film The Blue Dahlia, released a year prior. Elizabeth often wore a dahlia flower in her hair as an accessory. She was last seen alive in the grand lobby of the Biltmore Hotel in downtown LA, about a week before her body was discovered. This horrific case began on January 15, 1947, when a local woman and her child were walking through Leimert Park in Los Angeles. They spotted what appeared to be a mannequin lying by the side of the road. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was a woman's body, severed into 2 halves at the waist, resembling a mannequin taken apart. Her face was brutally mutilated. Parts of her body seemed like a toy for her killer. The corners of her lips were slashed nearly to her ears, resembling the Joker character from Batman. Soon after the discovery, police, FBI agents, and journalists flooded the scene, calling it one of the most brutal murders of its time. Not a single drop of blood was found on her pale body, leading investigators to believe she had been killed elsewhere, mutilated, and then her body cleaned and dumped. The autopsy revealed signs of torture. There were rope marks on her wrists and ankles. Bruises on her head suggested blunt force trauma. It was believed that the dismemberment occurred after she died, roughly 10 hours before the body was found. Elizabeth was discovered nude, but there was no trace of semen, ruling out rape. Investigators noted that the cuts were made with surgical precision, hinting that the killer might have had a background in medicine or anatomy. A few days later, the police received a letter made from cut-out newspaper letters. Later dubbed a ransom letter, the envelope contained several of Elizabeth's personal belongings. The sender claimed they had come from her purse. Everything reeked of gasoline, suggesting the killer had wiped them clean of fingerprints. Despite tireless efforts from the police and FBI, the case hit dead ends. Around 200 people were interrogated. Many were given lie detector tests, but all to no avail. Numerous theories emerged. One suggested that Elizabeth had refused a sexual advance because she was pregnant, but the autopsy confirmed she was neither pregnant nor had ever been. In 1949, during the trial of a man named George Hodel, accused of molesting his own daughter, Tamar Hodel, something caught the attention of investigators. Tamar claimed her father was the killer of the Black Dahlia. Given his medical degree and the surgical precision of the cuts, Hodel became a prime suspect. At least 8 witnesses confirmed a connection between Hodel and Elizabeth, who had just returned to LA from China. LAPD bugged Hodel's Hollywood home between February 15th and March 27th, 1950, with an 18-man surveillance team. In a chilling recording, Hodel said, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they can't prove it now. They can't talk to her anymore. She's dead." He was also interviewed regarding the Louise Springer murder, the so-called Green Twig murder, but no evidence surfaced. In October 1949, Hodel was listed as one of 5 prime suspects in a report submitted to the grand jury, but none of them were formally indicted as investigations were still ongoing. Details of this were only made public in 2003 when the George Hodel Black Dahlia files were found in the Los Angeles County District Attorney's archives. The files confirmed that Hodel had been a serious suspect. After Hodel died in 1999, his son Steve Hodel, a former LAPD homicide detective, began investigating his father. He discovered a photo album containing pictures of a young woman resembling Elizabeth. That launched his personal investigation. Based on the evidence he compiled, Steve became convinced his father was the killer. However, Detective Brian Carr, the LAPD officer in charge of the Black Dahlia case, criticized Steve's theory, calling it baseless. Elizabeth's relatives also said the photos weren't her. Carr added, "If I brought a weak case like this to a prosecutor, I'd be laughed out of the office." Carr also said he had no time to prove or disprove Steve's theory, as he was overwhelmed with ongoing active cases. Despite this, Steve wrote 2 more books about the case, even trying to connect his father to the Zodiac Killer and other notorious crimes. In 2017, author Pugh Marie Eatwell released her book Black Dahlia, Red Rose, proposing a theory that shocked many. She claimed the killer was Leslie Dwayne Dillon, a bellboy who had once been detained but later released. Eatwell alleged that the LAPD intentionally let the killer go free because Sergeant Finis Brown, one of the lead investigators, was a corrupt cop. Brown was allegedly connected to Mark Hansen, a nightclub and theater owner suspected of being involved in the murder. This theory was based on information from Buzz Williams, a retired Long Beach police officer. He told Eatwell that his father, Richard F. Williams, had served on the investigative team, known as the LAPD Gangster Squad. Buzz claimed these officers had ties to Dillon. Buzz recalled overhearing his father discussing the case with his friend Con Keller, also from the Gangster Squad. His father believed that Dillon had planned the murder with Hansen and a mysterious figure named Jeff Connors. Official police records dismissed Connors as a figment of Dillon's imagination, but Eatwell said it's nearly impossible to access LAPD records to verify the truth because the department will never unseal the murder files. Eatwell believed Elizabeth was killed at the Astra Motel, where Dillon lived. Motel owners Henry and Clora Hoffman reported that on January 15, 1947, one of their cabins was covered in blood and filth. There was also a witness who saw a dark-haired woman resembling Elizabeth with a man looking like Mark Hansen, but Eatwell's theory, like Steve Hodel's, was not widely accepted by law enforcement or the public. After her gruesome death, Elizabeth's mother, Phoebe May Sawyer, buried her daughter in Oakland's public cemetery, and moved nearby to be close to her grave. Now, 78 years have passed, and the murder of Elizabeth Short remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that these meaningful stories can continue to live on with us. See you in the next episode.